When a guy's nickname is the Big Dumper, maybe don't throw him fastballs slash meatballs right down the middle. It's just, what a frustrating weekend of Cubs baseball. I'm in a sour mood, folks, so I'm just going to let you know this is going to be one heck of a show we got for you today. But I am Alex, along with my buddy Ty, here to recap the Cubs Mariners weekend series that did not go very well. Then we're going to do standings update because I don't know if y'all looked lately. Here come the Brewers. It's getting a little tight. And then we are going to talk about, with Shota Imanaga's imminent return to the starting rotation this week, who goes? We are here. We've kind of mentioned it a couple times in passing on the show. Today, we are going to deep dive to break it all down to give you guys who we think should stay in the rotation now that Imanaga will be back this week. And finally, this week brings one of the most important series of the seasons to date. The Cubs will be in St. Louis taking on the Cardinals for 4. In fact, before we even get to breaking down Cubs Mariners, we have a little show announcement. We are going live on Tuesday after the game, a classic setup man post-game show, and it won't just be the two of us breaking news. It's everybody. It's Ty, it's myself, and the Podfather himself, so that should be fun. So that is Tuesday after Cubs Cardinals. Make sure to join us right here live on YouTube. And speaking of which, if you're on YouTube watching this, thank you. Make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button for some support. We always appreciate that. Audio only, same kind of deal. Hit that subscribe button so you get all of our wonderful content. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review and help us out there. If you like what you hear, why not let the public know as well and get the word out? We appreciate that. All right, things that I didn't appreciate. This Cubs Mariners weekend. Truth be told, folks, I was at a wedding and had wedding functions most of the weekend. And I'll tell you, the Cubs hit 11 homers. And watching the condensed games, I don't like how they played. And Ty, I want to ask you, so they lose 2 out of 3. The last show we did, we both were like, yep, 2 out of 3. You have to win 2 out of 3. And it was such a weird, I don't even know how to break this down. It was such a weird series. Between the weather, the defense was all over the place pitching. Ty, if you have to put blame on anything, where are you aiming the blame first and foremost? Pitching, defense, or the X variable that was the weather?
Well, there's a few different things that I can point at. The weather, it's hard to say and point to the weather as the reason why this weekend went the way it did, because both teams were dealing with it, right? So it's hard to make that excuse. Obviously, the home run ball was real this weekend with, like you said, the Cubs hit 11 and the Mariners hit, I can't remember how many they hit particularly, but they had a heck of a weekend.
They hit enough.
They hit enough. I would say the most disappointing part for me was the bullpen. And yes, I understand that the weather is going to impact the way the bullpen is going to be managed, along with how they're going to perform. 12 innings pitched, 25 hits, 15 earned runs, 4 walks to 12 Ks. If you remove our great friend Nate Pearson's his performance, 10 innings pitched, 20 hits, 10 earned runs, 2 walks to 11 Ks. So overall, the home run ball was in effect this past weekend. Presley struggled. Thielbar, Pomeranz, and Flexen all finally looked a little human and came back into form. I would say that was in particularly the biggest concern coming out of this weekend, because we knew this was coming, but we didn't know it was going to be this bad. Yes, the weather was what it was, but a little concerning going into the Cardinals series.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bullpen. I didn't love that. And Genesis Cabrera leaves, and I'll tell you what, if Cabrera was in the game instead of Nate Pearson today, I would have felt a little better. And I know Cabrera hasn't been great as of late, but I mean, and I know Nate Pearson was doing really well in AAA. They wanted to give him a chance. I kind of hope he gets the Luke Little treatment. Hey, you didn't have it. You weren't very good. Here's your plane ticket. Go back to Des Moines. especially this week. St. Louis and Houston, two really important series that you need headed into July. The division race is tightening, and we'll get to the standings update in a little bit. But man, oh
one
man,
other thing, one other thing to note that I think is very important with all of this. So let's see here, 5, 7, what is that? Almost 16 games in a row, no off days.
yeah,
And so when it comes to something like that, and you add in the fact that the weather is what it is, I will give a little bit of benefit to the doubt to Craig Counsell, because you have to manage your bullpen effectively and be ready for the most important series of the year thus far against St. Louis. So it is difficult when you're not able to use guys probably more than what you would normally use them for, because you're trying to keep them healthy, or keep their arms healthy enough to be able to handle a really important 4-game series that we'll talk about here a little bit later in the show. So it is one of those things where I remember they were talking about it with Counsell in the post game, where he did mention, he says it's very difficult because how are you supposed to position guys to be successful, not overuse them. So there was a little bit of that issue there. Maybe that's why the numbers were a little bit heightened. But still, it was concerning to see how they threw this weekend.
and correct me if I'm wrong. I only saw bits and pieces of the game today, and while I was prepping, it kind of looked to me that today, especially, it was okay. Flexen, you're going to have to wear it a little bit. Pearson, you're going to have to wear it a little bit. And I think you're right. There's especially St. Louis is supposed to be hot in the Midwest. It's really hot. I believe yesterday, at least where I am in Green Bay, Wisconsin, it was like 100 plus with humidity. It was really, and I believe it was similar conditions in Wrigley. And if you were at the game, please let us know. But it just the I don't want to dismiss the weather entirely, because there were on Friday especially 3 or 4 routine fly balls that were not caught. Yesterday, Ian Happ, kind of that weird miscommunication with Dansby that Kyle took a lot of heat for on Twitter or X or wherever. It was just a very bizarre weekend. And to say a positive pitching wise, I thought Cade Horton really, really was solid on Friday, and he got no help from his defense, because I believe his final stat line was something like he gave up 6 runs, but only 3 of them were earned. I thought in those conditions, I thought Cade Horton really impressed.
Yeah, he did a great job. And look, PCA is the best center fielder in the world, and there's no doubt about it. And he had 2 fly balls that he dropped that realistically, so you could see the ivy behind him swirling in different directions. So yes,
Yep.
that is very difficult. And both teams again are dealing with. You saw the same side. Not Julio didn't Rodriguez didn't drop any, but you could tell he was having a lot of issues as well with seeing the ball and finding it through the wind. So Cade pitched great. Cade was fine. He did what he would if we're talking about a normal weather day at Wrigley, which what in the world would that be? But if we're talking about a lesser of the wins, you could definitely see him having a more successful start against especially the Mariners, which aren't necessarily the most impressive offense, and besides the fact that they showed it this weekend. But yeah, it was Cade through well, and then we have we obviously talked about the bullpen and how much they struggled, but Brad Keller was a godsend this weekend. Came into the game when the Cubs are up 10-6 in the top of the 6th, and had runners at first and third, nobody out, and struck out the next 3 hitters. He was, talk about a guy that should be in Atlanta at this point. Should be a lock for Atlanta. He's really been something special for this team. I just want to thank Tyler Zombro again for his contributions to this organization. But if we're looking at Cade, if we're looking at the starts, right? Cade looked great. Colin Ray sucked. And Matthew Boyd, thankfully, is still alive, because that 105 comebacker that bruised his shoulder, he's going to be fine, supposedly Counsell said. But Boyd did fine. Horton did fine. And dare I say, Colin Ray sucked. So
no more questions, Your Honor. And that was another one where you could have pulled him like 2 or 3 times earlier, and it was kind of like, this is what we got. It doesn't, at this point, it's hot. The wind's blowing. If Cal Raleigh hits another homer, it is what it is, because that guy, Jesus, I'm tired of seeing that guy. And granted, like, I've been a giant fan of his for a while. but to see him just destroy our
Destroyed
pitching
us.
this weekend, oh my God, he is unbelievable. I know Judge, probably rightfully so, should get the MVP, but good God, man, the things that guy does. He even is throwing out base runners this weekend. Like, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean the fact was too is that obviously I don't like to be the person who says a major league pitcher sucks because I'm not doing anything in my life comparatively to what that guy is doing on the mound. But realistically, when you're throwing a center cut middle fastball to Cal Raleigh these days, you might as well just ask for another ball at that point. And it felt like the entire weekend, like he dominated us. And again, when you have a player like that who can basically take over a game and he's behind the backstop, he's got a higher WAR this year than PCA, which I honestly didn't even know. But I think he was at 4.9 today, and PCA's at 3.9. Just shows how great of a year Cal Raleigh's had. But it's the fact is that from a pitching standpoint, we just did not necessarily compete at all with him this weekend. We threw him a lot of pitches over the middle of the part of the zone that any guy who's having a year like him is going to have success with. So even with the weather, those were absolute bombs. So yeah. Want to talk about some positives? You want to talk about maybe
I feel like we've been a little negative. The only positives we hit were Cade Horton and Brad Keller. Let's talk positives.
I thought personally, it was great to see the offense start to get things going again. And again, yes, we keep saying the word weather and what that meant. It felt like the offense was trying to use that to their advantage. Happ, Seiya, and Tucker had 7 home runs total over the weekend. Obviously, as we mentioned, the Cubs had 11. So it's nice to see the offense start to get things going again. And it's tough because with the way Wrigley has been over the last month or so, it's been difficult to score runs in that ballpark. And so, you're having to deal with that at the ballpark, and then it's hard to, then get hot on the road because you've obviously been spending time at Wrigley. So it's good to see that it's starting to warm up. The ball's flying out of the ballpark, and I felt like the offense did show some tremendous strides. And it was good to see like a guy like PCA who dropped those 2 fly balls. Most young players really just kind of want to go hide under their blanket in their room and get away from everything. He hits one off he hit a couple rockets this weekend, and so did Seiya. Seiya looked amazing this weekend. The 2 home runs he had today, oh my gosh, they were incredible. And Kyle Tucker, of course, seeing him getting going again. And it's good to see that the offense is starting to get things going because it's going to be so important this upcoming week in St. Louis that the offense does provide a lot of insurance runs, because with the amount of work this bullpen has had to put in, and the fact that Imanaga is not necessarily going to give you, an entire 6 innings, he's probably going to be able to go like 3 or 4. It's going to be crucial that the offense gets going
for sure. And while we can actually
stays at their level in St. Louis is what I meant.
For sure. And yes, we're going to get to that in a little bit. But Shota Imanaga is officially coming back this week. We will talk a little bit more about that in a second. Well, really, is there anything else you want to take away from this Seattle series? Because, like I said, it was so hard to judge. The pitching didn't look great. The offense did. The defense was all over the place. Like Michael Busch on Friday had one of the most unreal picks at first base I've ever seen. And then it's followed up by a ball dropping between Ian Happ and Dansby Swanson looking at each other, and then PCA losing a second fly ball in the sun or wind or whatever. It was just like, I don't really know what to take away from. And it's an interleague series, and those are always kind of goofy to begin with. So is there anything you're like, oh, we have to make sure we talk about this before we move on to other topics here?
So the way I described it, on for when we did our series, preview for the Mariners series, was I was hoping, of course, to take 2 out of 3 because I thought they were going to get diced up against Logan Gilbert. And obviously Friday was sort of not necessarily the norm with this team this year, with Presley and Thielbar both giving up 2 earned, which was pretty shocking to see happen. Despite the weather, they actually just didn't look that great on Friday. Yeah. So Friday was disappointing to not get that one. But then for Sunday, like, they didn't necessarily look too bad against Logan Gilbert. And Gilbert's easily top 10 starting pitcher in the game. right now, and would love to see in a Cubs uniform one day. But he didn't necessarily dice up the Cubs like I thought he was going to. So that was really intriguing to see, even though the offense did come alive this weekend, they still had a lot of success against Logan Gilbert. So that was also exciting to see.
For sure. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Logan Gilbert. They got 4 earned off him in this condition. Logan Gilbert's really good. Nobody nationally, no one really talks about that Mariners team. But man, oh man, we had said it in our preview show. They got some electric arms.
Yeah.
Even George Kirby, who struggled this year for the most part, he looked pretty good for the most part on Friday. So they got the whole series was just kind of bizarre. I don't want to wash it because, again, bullpen regression, maybe that's on its way. Like you said, Pomerantz looked a little human. Thielbar gave up a couple runs. Presley, who had been rolling, he didn't look great. In fact, to the point where he hasn't shown a ton of emotion, but he was actually spitting and snorting walking off the mound back to the dugout when they pulled him. So there's just a couple little things. It's like, just going to flag that for future knowledge because it just, it's bizarre. They lose, but maybe, I know in gambling, they talk about this, like for gambling on football and stuff, look ahead spots and stuff. Maybe with the importance of the St. Louis, and this being an interleague series, doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, yes, you want to win every series, doesn't really matter, right? So maybe it's just one of those look ahead spots. You have to go on the road, especially today, getaway day. Maybe it's a crap excuse, don't get me wrong, but maybe this is a little bit of a look ahead spot. So what should we look forward to this week? Well, one of the Cubs' top pitchers that's been gone since Cinco de Mayo, Shota Imanaga, will be returning to pitch in St. Louis. We do not have a specific day yet, but it was announced by Craig Counsell that Shota Imanaga's next start will be for the big league club. David Kaplan last week, we had mentioned this on our last show, said he was hearing Wednesday potentially. And when we get to our series preview in a little bit, they haven't announced pitchers. The Cardinals haven't announced pitchers outside of tomorrow. The Cubs have announced Monday, Tuesday starters, but not Wednesday, Thursday. So a lot of things up in the air. But we do know Shota Imanaga will be back within the next 4 days. Most likely Wednesday, but maybe they keep him for Thursday. It doesn't really matter, but he will be back this week, which is exciting news. Hey, that starting rotation, we got to have a discussion. Because Shota Imanaga is coming back, we've kind of touched on it here and there, Ty and I, Kyle and I. Who's got to go? Well, our goal on today's show is to get to the bottom of who's got to go. So, a little Super Smash Brothers style, by the way.
3, 2, 1, go!
We're going to fight it out here. We're going to try and figure out who's going to go. So I want to start with the least likely to leave the rotation, and that would be one Mr. Cade Horton, who, again, has been really good. So far in the big league season, he's been in the big leagues. He's 3-1 with a 3.73 ERA and 41 innings pitched, 31 strikeouts to only 10 walks. That was kind of his bugaboo in the minor leagues, was walks. He's only got 10 in the big leagues. The command has really been impressive so far. And just in the month of June, he's 2-2 in 4 games, 20 2/3 inning pitched, 3.48 ERA, 15 strikes, 6 walks. So the walks going up in June, just something to notice. Not crazy, but just something to keep an eye on. But we mentioned he had an impressive start against Seattle, and he didn't get a lot of help from his defense. But Cade Horton, are we both in agreement? He's a lock to stay. There's really
Absolutely.
nothing to talk about here. The only reason we mention him is because he was the last, kind of like the last guy hired, first guy fired type of idea. He came up when Shota was injured. Well, now Shota's back, but he's been so impressive. And the way Craig Counsell gushes about him, we don't have to spend a lot of time here. Cade Horton, we both expect to stay. The real fight is between Ben Brown and Colin Ray. So we're going to start with Ben Brown, who is pitching tomorrow in St. Louis. On the season, he's 4-5, a 5.57 ERA and 74 1/3 innings pitched, 88 strikeouts to only 25 walks. Not terrible on the outside. Since Shota Imanaga went down, this courtesy of a one Mr. Setup Man Ty on X, and also my co-host. Since Shota Imanaga went down, he started 8 games, 43 innings. He's given up 47 hits, 29 earned runs, 6 homers allowed, 11 walks to 53 Ks. That is a darn good ratio. Colin Ray, on the other hand, 4-2 on the season, a 3.84 ERA, 68 innings pitched, 52 Ks, 18 walks on the season. In the last 9 games started since Shota Imanaga has gone down, 48 and 2/3 innings, 62 hits, 32 earned runs, 12 homers allowed, 14 walks to 33 Ks. So, Ty, I give the ball to you, good sir. Where are you leaning in the fight between Ben Brown and Colin Ray to stay in the rotation?
Oh man, this is really tough because there's two sides to it, right? Like what my answer is that I want Ben Brown to stay in the rotation. There's two sides to this storyline though, right? Because you have the storyline of Ben Brown who has been up and down, left and right, and just seems to not have any form of consistency. But on the flip side, if you look at Colin Ray, he had a quality start last time out against Pittsburgh. But in what I've have felt since basically when he pitched against LA in that series in LA against Glasnow, I just don't see his stuff moving like it used to, like it was at the beginning of the year, where he was able to rely on that two-seamer and it coming at the hip, the hip of a lefty and going and then beating right in to nail it on the black. It's just his stuff has not competed well against some of these teams. Like even against Washington, like you look at that stat line there, like he went 5 1/3, no earned runs, 5 hits, but it felt like every single ball was hit over 105 miles per hour. So it's hard for me to sit here and say Colin Ray is a better option than Ben Brown because Colin Ray hasn't necessarily given me any sort of a fuzzy feeling at all on the mound, and it hasn't looked that great. At least with Ben Brown, you can have a start in there or two in the next couple of games if Colin Ray does move to the pen, where Ben Brown can he can have that ceiling of 11, 12 strikeout game. I mean, we're talking some serious stuff here. And so the reason why I like too that Ben Brown would necessarily stay is I feel like Colin Ray out of the pen might be, better suited, especially for those games when we might be down 3 to 4 runs and our starter may have not necessarily looked that great out of the gates. Well, at least you have Colin Ray where you may not get something absolutely crazy, like a crazy performance, like you're talking 4 or 5 innings pitch with 10 Ks. Now, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying is that I feel like Colin Ray can come and at least keep the game alive for us versus Ben Brown comes into a game, you have no idea what's going to happen. So I think go with Ben Brown. I would love to have an opener. I know it's sort of a difficult situation right now with the amount of games that they've had to play in a row. So it's difficult to use guys just for one inning as an opener. But right now, I feel more confident in Ben Brown on the mound. And those numbers speak for themselves. 6 home runs comparatively to 12. Even though he gave up 4 or whatever in the weather today, it still has not looked good for Colin Ray. So I'm sticking with Ben Brown. What about you?
So I think I'm not going to do the first take thing where I'm going to take the opposite side and just yell it back and forth with you. I'm not going to do the first take thing.
Well, don't yell at me. I mean, that's...
I know. HR talked to me last time I yelled at you. But so with Colin Ray, this is the argument for, I would say, is you kind of know what he is. So you kind of know, all right, you're going to get 5, if he's really rolling 6 or 7 innings, probably 4-ish earned runs. It's boring. It's not sexy. But at least it's more of a known variable, right? You kind of know what you're going to get, even though it's not pretty and it's not great, and he does get hit around, as you alluded to. It's more of a known thing. Whereas Ben Brown, as we've been talking about for, it feels like every time we do a show, it's up, it's down, it's left, it's right. You don't know what you're getting. However, I do think I lean in your direction just because we know what Colin Ray is. That own argument is also his downfall. His ceiling isn't very high. His floor it's relatively fine. It's fine. He's average. That's what he is. He is an average pitcher, which is fine. You want guys like that. I just think between the dip in velocity, kind of the downturn in his stuff compared to what it was in April when he was throwing 95 with movement. Now it's like 92 to 93 with less movement. Well, that's a heck of a lot more hittable, especially when the Cal Raleighs of the world are taking you 450 dead center. So I'm leaning towards Ben Brown. And the reason is because, yes, his basement is a heck of a lot lower. We've seen that. But his ceiling is really a lot higher than Colin Ray's. So, and you put it perfectly. Say he's got a 5-game start stretch. He might strike out 10 in 3 of those starts. The other 2 might not be great. But this is also a bit of the problem when you're developing on the fly, and when you lose Justin Steele, and when you lose Shota Imanaga. You now have to rely on projects to come up bigger than what they are able to at that present moment. We've talked about the 2-pitch mix. Okay, like I don't want to have that conversation again, but it is a factor. So at the end of the day, I think Colin Ray as a long man, even in short stints, I mean, if he can get back to throwing 95 per inning instead of worrying about lasting, and it's just, hey man, go give her hell for 3 outs or 6 outs or whatever. Maybe that just juices his stuff a little bit. Whereas Ben Brown doesn't need any more juice in his stuff. He is electric, as you already alluded to. So I think which is crazy because even a week ago I would have been like, no, it's got to be Ben Brown. He's got to go back to AAA. In fact, I think I said it on this very show. But I think where you're at now, you can still develop him in your big league rotation with your best coaches that you have in the organization. And Colin Ray is a veteran. He knows what he's got to do. If you put him in the bullpen, he's done it before. He did it in April before Steele went down. So that's a very long way of saying when it comes to just ceiling raisers, I like Ben Brown's potential more than Colin Ray's. I think Colin Ray can be valuable in the bullpen in short stints. Ben Brown, he stretched out. I said it last time on the show. They believe the Cubs, not necessarily me yet, but the Cubs really believe in this kid as a starter.
Here is the great points, by the way. Great points across the board. It's very difficult to sit here and say like Colin Ray should absolutely be in the rotation. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting, Mr. Alex Birot. The idea right now of innings limits for a guy like Mr. Cade Horton, which last year, okay, he threw a total of 34 innings. This year, he's already exceeded 70 in total in with AAA and the major leagues combined. Colin Ray in other seasons has thrown almost, especially in 2024, through 167, and in 2023 through 124. Mr. Ben Brown, who had the weird neck injury last year, threw a total of 55 innings. This year, he's already at 74. So the reason why I bring this all up is, and the Cubs have to do a good job of creating their reason why and saying why it is this way if this happens, is I don't want to throw it out the option of Cade Horton being optioned based on the innings limit thing, because Colin Ray at least has shown that he can throw for quite a few innings here in the big leagues. Cade Horton has not. He's had an injury history. And Ben Brown, yeah, he had the weird injury last year, but I think they're okay with letting him throw. So don't be shocked if Cade gets optioned because of the innings limit. And it kills me to say that because he's looked so good and he looked the part. Hell, over the weekend on Saturday, like with everything falling from the sky and everything feeling like the Cubs were going to get swept over the weekend, he held his own. Yeah. It would be sad to see that happen. Do you see that as a possibility at this point? Because we haven't heard a lot of verbiage from the Cubs and counsel about it, but it was something that was brought up at the beginning of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think at this point, right now, with how desperate they are for wins and with the division race tightening, which before we get to the series preview, we'll have to go over that too, because it is getting tighter. With everything kind of becoming not that it could be more urgent, I would put it at maybe like 20% that he goes down on a scale of like 1 to 100. Like, I don't think it's impossible. Like, I would be upset as a fan, and I would be a little confused based on how everything is aligned right now. But I think you're right, because I think we also just kind of take for granted, like, oh, if he's rolling, leave him in there, which is true. If he's rolling, leave him in there. But with the injury history, he's had Tommy John already. He hasn't made it through a full season in his professional career. Even at Oklahoma, he struggled with injuries. It's not the craziest thing out there, but I would be surprised, at least at this point, especially when you look at the schedule here. They have 2 more weeks until the All-Star break. Maybe that factors in with that little extra rest. Maybe. I would be surprised, though. I honestly, I think it's going to be a bullpen piece. I think it's going to be Nate Pearson. I think they're going to give him the Luke Little treatment. And
Oh, really? Oh, maybe that might be a good call, considering he throws 98 right down the middle. Yeah, no. Look, here's another important point too. So Cade has never thrown north of 100 innings pitch in his big league career, or sorry, in his professional career. I don't know how many innings he threw at Oklahoma, but he has not thrown north of 100 in the big leagues, or sorry, in professional baseball. The other thing that I could potentially see happening is a trade a little bit earlier than we expect.
oh, okay.
So then it's Imanaga, Tyone, Boyd, and then what do you do there? Because now you're probably going to get somebody at the deadline, so that's your 4th spot. So your 5th spot right now is the mixture of Cade, Colin Ray, and Ben Brown. I'm not missing anybody, am I?
I don't believe so.
So that is also in the cards. So then if you get a 5th guy, well, then obviously Ben goes to the bullpen easily. Colin Ray, of course, is still a part of that bullpen long reliever role. And that's where I can see Cade getting pushed down back to AAA, which would seriously, folks, it would be such a shame. But you mentioned a really key word there, Alex Brault, the word urgency. Do the Cubs feel as if Cade Horton should be in that position for the rest of the year when they could hinder his career a little bit, and that has been something that has been discussed with the nettings limit. So again, a lot to look out for the next couple of weeks. I would love, though, please comment below on YouTube, because I really, really want to hear people's feedback as to, 1, the Colin Ray versus Ben Brown argument, and number 2, do you see a path to where they move K to AAA based on the innings limit? Let's hear your thoughts, everyone, because this is a really important discussion for the future of the Cubs in 2025.
So I will push back just a little bit on the innings limit, which, yes, you are correct. That is a thing. But I do think it's interesting to note with his pitch counts in each of these games, they've really held him back. It's rare when he goes over 90. And I don't think that's just a coincidence. Like, even Friday, he was good enough. Impressive with all the conditions, and we already talked about that. But I think he only threw it, and I can look it up quick. He was only around 80 pitches.
Yeah.
They're being super careful with him, which I really appreciate. And I do think that plays a factor. So, while yes, I do think, they don't want him throwing 200 innings, because that would be insane for a guy who's never done it before. But also, if he's rolling, they're being cautious with him already. I'm actually pulling up the box score now. So he pitched, was that on Saturday? I thought it was Friday, but it looks like Boyd went on Friday, so I may have my dates mixed up. Let me look. But regardless, box score, come on. Yes, so Cade pitched Saturday. Threw 90 pitches. So that actually feels like a rarity. 4 2/3. And really, unfortunately, an inefficient 90 pitches just because of all the errors and the weird stuff. But, I mean, I'll say this. As a fan, I would be heartbroken if he was gone because he's earned the right. That has to matter at some point. He's earned more than Ben Brown. He's earned more than Colin Ray to this point. So, while yes, I get it, I personally, I would put it like a 20% because I don't think it happens. But the facts that you just laid out, I do think are a reason for, we can't totally rule this out.
Absolutely, yeah, because you said it. So in his 8 starts this year, 77, 79, 92, 83, 77, 85, 76, 90. So he's only gone over or at 90 twice. So that is a very, very good point, Mr. Brault. I just want to make my stance very clear here. I want Cade Horton in the rotation, and there's no doubt about it. And then I want Ben Brown in the 5th spot. For you, Mr. Brault, it sounds like you're on the same page I am.
Yep.
But these are things to consider, folks, because if this happens, it's probably related to the health the health of Cade Horton and making sure that he is in the best position moving forward. Because I'll say this, we now for the next 2 seasons will have Imanaga, Matthew Boyd,
Steele,
Jameson,
hopefully.
Steele, yep, Justin Steele. Sorry, Imanaga, Matthew Boyd, Jameson Tyone, Justin Steele, and Mr. Cade Horton, plus Ben Brown.
And if they make a trade for, say, a Sandy Alcantara, they'll have to figure that out too. Now, maybe Ben Brown goes in that trade. Who knows? We talked about trades last time. Make sure you check out that episode because it was a lot of fun to do that. But they also might bring in a guy this year that will be under contract for several more years. So, and Jameson Tyone next year will be in a walk year, which also that'll be the last year of his 4-year deal that he signed in 21. So there's just a lot of variables here. And they want to be careful because I've heard multiple people that are plugged in with the organization say they really believe Cade Horton is a number 1 or number 2. They believe in the kid Jackson Wiggins, who we also mentioned on the trade episode. Like, they got a lot of good things happening. Ben Brown, if his ceiling, I mean, we've seen flashes. If his ceiling's like a 3, then you have a 3-headed monster of Wiggins, Horton, Brown if he ever reaches his full potential. And then whoever else fills out the rotation, Steele if he gets an extension, Imanaga if he gets it. That's really freaking good, man. So, yes, you want to be careful, but also this is the nature of the beast where you are in a position, you can win your division. You can make a deep run in October. But you got to also think with the future in mind as well. And maybe if they bring in a Sandy, maybe that gives them a little more leeway. Okay, Cade, here's the deal. We're going to either we'll go every 6 days or whatever. I do think they'll figure it out ultimately. But let's talk about the standings real quick before we get into the upcoming divisional series. So, as of recording, it is 6:54 p.m. Wrigley time, Central Time. The Cubs still in first place, only 3.5 up on the Milwaukee Brewers, who are red hot. They've won, this is according to Sam Olber on X, friend of the show, Sam Olber, I should mention. The Brewers have won 20 of their last 27, and they have the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Colorado Rockies at home for this upcoming 6-game homestand, which, if you're a Cub fan, should scare the bejesus out of you because Cubs have St. Louis and Houston. It's going to get really tight really fast, which is another reason I would argue Cade Horton needs to be in the rotation because at this moment, he's one of your best 5 starters, especially for this stretch. So things are getting tight, and it's not getting any easier because Cubs are headed to St. Louis for a 4-gamer. Game 1, we know that matchup. It'll be the aforementioned Ben Brown versus Matthew Liberatore. Ask your doctor if Liberatore is right for you. Liberatore on the season is 4-6 with a 4.08 ERA. His last 5 been a bit of a struggle. He's 1-3, 27 innings, 19 earned in those 27 innings. ERA of 6.33. So a bit of a struggle for Liberatore. Now Ben Brown, 4-5 on the season, and fun fact, this is his first time ever facing the Cardinals, so that might be an advantage in his favor. Game 2, we know it'll be Jameson Tyone. We don't know who the Cardinals right now do not have it listed, and actually we're going to do this kind of on the fly as we're recording. We'll see if they updated that. But Ty, you and I were talking beforehand. The guess would be Eric Fetty for St. Louis. Let's see if they have it posted yet. They do not. So, as of right now, we only know Libator for the Cardinals on Monday in Game 1. Game 2, 3, and 4 have not been announced from St. Louis. For the Cubs, we know Ben Brown on Monday, Jamison Tyone Tuesday, who's 7-4 on the season with a 3.84 ERA, got roughed up in his last start, looking to bounce back there. And then we don't know Game 3, Game 4. I would imagine it's Shota Imanaga Wednesday, just based on the whispers that are out on the internet, and then either Cade Horton or Matthew Boyd, depending on how they want to do that on Thursday. So you're giving St. Louis really at least three of four of your best punches. But also, St. Louis is probably going to counter. Eric Fetty, pretty good. I would imagine there's going to be a Sonny Gray appearance, also pretty good. It's going to be a tough one. So, Ty, I mean, are we talking just pray to God that we split and get out of there alive?
Well, look, the Cubs are 12-6 versus their division this year, which is pretty outstanding to be where they're at this season, and this is a good ball club. The way I look at this series is yes, I would agree. A split is what I would want, just because you're going into St. Louis. It's the easy way out to answer your question, Alex. The thing, though, that is really intriguing, though, is the offense. And I haven't looked at the weather and what it's looking like this week, so I apologize. But I would expect that it's not necessarily going to be flurry conditions of any form, especially with how the Midwest is basically turned into Arizona with a mixture of Florida here the last couple of days.
Midwest. It's
been nuts. Yeah, well, we had 117 the other day, so I won't feel bad for you guys. But look, I'm very intrigued to see, and this will show how urgent this organization is to beat both sides. Do they give Sonny Gray the ball, which would be interesting because Sonny Gray is not slated necessarily to pitch in this series, but that would be fascinating to see if they really want to try to grab an extra one from the Cubs. But do the Cubs push back K today? And do they go Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga? I would totally think that they would do that on Wednesday and Thursday. Look, I think where I'm at right now is that St. Louis is 6-4 in their last 10. They're a solid ball club. Defensively, very solid. Basically top 5 in baseball when it comes to that department. Offensively, you got guys like Brendan Donovan, our old friend Wilson Contreras. Victor Scott is a demon on the base pass, but that'll be their only threat there. Team OPS-wise, they're 15th at 718, comparatively to the Cubs at 769, who are 4th in baseball. Walks-wise, around the same amount on both sides, and then similar in strikeouts as well. So it feels like a pretty even-keeled matchup.
And
I think... Go ahead.
You mentioned Wilson Contreras. Low-key, kind of a Cubs killer. In 19 games, he's hitting .322. He's got 8 RBIs. He's only got 1 homer, but, I mean, he really slugs against the Cubs. His slugging is .441. His on-base is .446. Like, he's a low-key Cubs killer, and boy, oh boy, I know it's been years now, but Wilson Contreras has to be licking his chops for this series.
This is, well, and it's so, that's why it's so important that the offense had done what they done this past weekend, even though the results and the standings won't show that. Offensively, they look locked in. And guys like Matt Shaw, guys like, Reese McGuire and Carson Kelly and some of these underrated names, or not underrated, under the radar names right now, especially with how the season has gone thus far. But a guy like Dansby Swanson is going to be critical this week. Like all these guys, because we have 7 games coming up against the Cardinals and the Astros. The bullpen has been worked to death over the last, number of games that we've now had in a row. And it's just, man, we have to be able to score as many runs as possible and figure out a way to manage the bullpen effectively. Because if we don't score a lot in this series, I fear that we could lose 3 out of 4 or even get swept, because I have a fear right now of how much usage this pen has had to do. And the fact is that our starters, like you said, Tyone didn't look great last time out. Ben Brown is who knows what in the world we're about to get tomorrow. While Shota looked amazing in AAA, he's coming back from not pitching since May 5th. And then, I feel good about Matthew Boyd, but realistically, like 3 out of those 4 games, like before Tyone's last start, felt good that he won that matchup. Now, who knows where we're going to get Ben Brown, like I said. So overall, where I'm at this point is find a way to get a split.
Yep. Well, and looking at the schedule here, so they have St. Louis for 4, Houston, as we already mentioned. Then next week, they're off Monday, so their first off day since the 16th. Then they go to Cleveland, I believe. Nope, so they're home against Cleveland and home against St. Louis again. So they're going to have the Cardinals 7 times in the matter of 2 weeks, not even. So this is a really important stress, and you are absolutely right. I still feel good about Tyone. A little roughed up, which was bound to happen because that's our luck on the show. Every time we praise someone, they're terrible. Every time we say, this guy's got to pick it up, they're awesome. So who knows? Maybe a bounce back spot for Tyone. I feel good about Matthew Boyd. I got a gut feeling about tomorrow. With Liberatore struggling, I know Ben Brown hasn't been lights out by any means. I just have a bit of a gut feeling. And then the Shota game, I think that's your coin flip game. Because if he's really good, I really like our chances. If he's a little rusty, that makes sense. But as we've pointed out, and many other Cubs podcasts have pointed out, he's saving bullets in his arm. It was a leg injury. So maybe he comes out guns blazing. He's throwing 95 and fired up. And it's like, all right, let's go. So this series, yes, bare minimum, I want to split because that at least does no damage. It's a wash. You wash your hands clean of it, on to Houston. And then really, you basically push back the importance. Not that this series isn't important, but if you split, then next weekend against St. Louis, you have them in your barn, and then you could take 2 out of 3 and then start to kind of widen that gap. So, and that's math, folks. Nerd!
Yeah, the Cubs are 7-8 since that week schedule stretch that they had. So it'd be nice to sort of keep that around, either get to that 9-10 mark. Man, if you can get to 10-9 going out of that stretch, considering the fact of sort of things are starting to look a little bleak in the bullpen, would be tremendous. So try to split, stay at 9-10 in these since that week stretch. But man, it's just
I want 3 or 4.
This is such an important series, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Considering everything is, I'm going to be so locked in to these games.
Yeah, this is one of those series where it feels like we have not had one of these in a while. Where those people in St. Louis, they love their Cardinals and they hate the Cubs. That crowd is going to be electric. It's going to be a playoff type atmosphere. And when's the last time we've had a Cubs-Cardinals series that has felt this big and this important? So if you're not fired up for this series, you need to go see a doctor. Maybe ask for Liberatore and get your heart rate checked because you need to be fired up for this series. It is going to be electric. I cannot wait to watch it. And before we sign off here, Tuesday. That's going to be an important game. Jameson Taillon on the hill, maybe Eric Fetty. That's going to be a good game. And the Setup Man crew will be live after that game. So our first post-game show in a while, our first live show in a while, make sure to join us Tuesday after Cubs Cards. We will be live. For this show, that's going to do it. On your way out the door, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Oh, Ty has a finger up. He has one more point to make.
We also got worked in our comments on the last show of talking about who's like the last player to have the it factor for
you're right. I'm glad.
Teams. Patrick Kane and Jonathan Tays, we would like to apologize on behalf of the entire Setup Man Network that we did not mention your names and winning 3 Stanley Cups. So, hey, folks, maybe sometimes we're wrong. Maybe sometimes we miss something. This one's on me, and I'll be better next time. But as Alex alluded to, please subscribe. We love hearing your comments. Some of them good, some of them, pretty egregious. But hey, at the end of the day, you're taking the time out of your day to listen to our stuff. You're taking the time out of your day to type a comment in. We sincerely appreciate it. And Alex, I'll turn it back over to you.
That's well said. And honestly, I welcome corrections because obviously we're not perfect. We might miss something. If you guys have something to add, as long as it's, you not being a jerk and you have something like, hey guys, the Hawks won 3 cups in the matter of what, like
Bulls,
6 years?
Bulls would have won 3 NBA championships if I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
I
don't
mean,
wanna talk about it.
you could probably see I'm
I'm
a
gonna
Heat
go.
fan, so my Miami Heat.
Finish the show, Alex. Finish the show.
Anyway, yes. So thank you for pointing out Kane and Taves. But anyway, that's going to do it for us. Make sure on your way out the door, like, subscribe, hit that little bell. Kyle put out a very fascinating video yesterday. He had claimed Ian Happ looks a little passive in left field. And people were fired up. So Kyle said, you know what? I'm going to fire right back at you, baby. So he's got a breakdown of Ian Happ's play in left field that was very fascinating. So make sure you check that out. Audio only listeners, we don't judge you, but there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. You should hop over to YouTube. But audio only, make sure you hit that subscribe button, help us out there, and also help. Let's try English. I'm starting to fall apart, folks. Help us out with a 5-star review, if you wouldn't mind. That is Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. So thank you for joining us on this Sunday. We wish we had better news to bring you, but big series this week. Get fired up. We will be back Tuesday with a live show post-game, all three of us, myself, Ty, and Kyle. But until then, we bid you adieu, and we are going to go ice up. We'll see you on Tuesday night after Cubs Cards. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on Tuesday.